It's October, so it's that time of year again. Scream Fortress has arrived, bringing us the same old package of broken maps, questionable cosmetics, and hideous unusual effects. This year we got another double cross reskin because the winter one wasn't enough, and a remap that didn't even work on Valve servers for a while, 20 frames per second powerhouse reskin, and an Optimus Prime cosmetic to remind us about how far the art style has fallen. Isn't this just great? I mean, Valve updating an 18-year-old game at all? Should we just be thankful? Right? Where did things go so wrong? The quality of the content we get is expected to be pretty poor at this point. It is practically a given that the update will be broken in some part, with matchmaking not working, the functionality of the maps being broken, and sometimes even the cosmetics because Valve is too incompetent. The bar is set so low now that ironically, I think the best part of this update was that we only got 5 maps instead of 12. Yes, we only have 3 good maps with only 2 of them being bad, instead of 3 good maps with 9 of them being bad. True improvement. But something feels different in the community with the reception to this update this time around, it feels like. Maybe I just only see the negative things because of the TF2 cynic I am, but most of the discussion around this update has seemed pretty negative, and rightfully so. More people are pointing out how Valve doesn't care, the cosmetic selection is pretty questionable at best, and that you literally cannot play the new content at some points. These problems have always existed in modern seasonal updates, however. With Summer 2023, versus Saxon Hill was broken for weeks, and Scream Fortress 2023, Zombie Infection was also broken for a while and had horrendous balancing. Matchmaking was even worse during last year's Scream Fortress, and yet it feels like more people are upset now than back then. It's getting to the point now where I think people are tired of the usual seasonal updates. It is the same content formula over and over and over again. There are only so many maps and cosmetics you can add before people start to lose interest. So here it is, the title of the video. How much is enough? What is the limit or end to Valve dumping seasonal content in the game? Surely this cannot be sustainable. There are actual problems that arise from adding too much besides people complaining. With the first problem being matchmaking. The matchmaking system was never designed to have 182 maps in rotation at once. The player base at TF2 is not in the millions or even hundreds of thousands. At best we have 20,000 people actively playing the game at any given time. There are too many maps and too few people, too much supply and too little demand. Some maps straight never get played because the system would rather put people in maps that are more popular queued individually, leading to 5+ minute or even longer of its alternative game mode queues if the map you want to play isn't a part of the 10 most popular maps. Also, side note, why the hell is Payload raised in alternative game mode? It was never with quick play and has been in the game since 2009. Please, I just want to play Nightfall. This is only going to get worse with each passing update. How long will it take to find a match when there are 200 maps in rotation? What about 300 maps in rotation? It may seem crazy to imagine it, but if we keep getting seasonal updates with the amount of maps we get, it may not take long to reach a point where we have hundreds of maps in rotation. What is the point of adding new maps if you'd like want to even be able to play on them after the event update ends? I know this doesn't apply to Scream Fortress year round, but what about maps from Summer and Smithsmas that get added to the rotation? I would already consider a lot of the maps from Summer and Smithsmas to be dead on matchmaking. Each one have to take over 5 or even 10 minutes just to find an often half-empty server for these maps. Too many maps also create the issue of bloat. Why is TF2, a now 18-year-old video game, around 30 gigabytes? From 2023 to 2024 alone, 3 gigabytes was added just with maps, with 36 maps in 2023 and 23 in 2024. Sure, 3 gigabytes isn't that much by modern standards. Storage has gotten a lot cheaper and faster every year, but it feels a bit unreasonable to have such an old game be pumped with more and more content every year. My real concern here is how much longer will this go on for? In 2030, will TF2 be 40 gigabytes? What about another decade from now? 50 or 60 gigabytes? Most people in TF2 stick around for the same content and maps they already play on. In my personal experience, I mostly play on maps made before 2014. The most popular maps in the game are over a decade old at this point. 2-4 and Decibel were at launch, Badwater was in 2008, Harvest was in 2009, Upward was in 2010. It doesn't help that most of the new content isn't that memorable these days. There still is good content that is added with these updates, don't get me wrong. Some of my favorites are Pier and Camber, but some of the other ones range from forgettable to egregious at best. Seriously, who here would miss Woodville, Venice, Breadspace, Frostwatch, Overgrown, Forzetta, and Demolition just to name a few? Finally, the quality of the content being added and the debate of what shouldn't and should be added leads me to my final point of infighting. This point is a lot more subjective and doesn't actually impact the game itself, but my god, I've never seen another community with so much drama and infighting amongst each other. Normally for a game this old, the community would likely be a lot more smaller and not as hostile, but because TF2 is still receiving content, there is still discussion on what should and shouldn't happen with the game. It is just tiring at this point. People calling out workshoppers for poor quality content only for them to say that you are harassing them. People saying that Valve should choose better content only for people to say that you should be thankful that Valve is still adding content to this old game, and the constant name calling and almost rivalry between the two sides. I legitimately think we as a community would be better off if Valve stopped adding content, just because there'd be less hostility and tension over every submission on the workshop. This isn't me saying criticism of the workshop is bad, this is me saying that the discussion is tiring, and we'd be better off if it just ended. All in all, I think the current pace of seasonal updates is actually bad for the game in the long term. Right now we may only see a little bit of the effects, but as time goes on, I expect to see more issues arise. Maybe this is just me, but I don't even really care for these seasonal updates anymore, when it's not only just the same old content formula, but the content we get isn't even good. I would like for Valve to stop doing these seasonal updates at this point because of the reasons I mentioned, but they probably never will stop because A, it is much easier for them to maintain the status quo, and B, they don't have a good reason to stop. For maintaining the status quo, Valve wants to upset as little people as possible. Whether good or bad, Valve doesn't want to change or fix anything because it has been the standard for so long. Let's not forget that this, in Valve's eyes, is okay, because some people may like it that way. There's no way Valve would ever stop doing the seasonal updates. They most likely have to announce that the seasonal updates would be ending, and would have to give a reason for them ending, and, well, there's no way Valve would ever admit their mistakes. Workshoppers who basically give Valve free money would also be upset, as now they have no reason to keep making content because their content can't be added as frequently. Speaking of free money, Valve loves free money, and for them it would be idiotic to stop. Why would they want to stop printing money from these seasonal updates? All it requires from them is copy and pasting workshop submissions, and then the money rolls in. Valve could care less about the interest of the game and the players. The game could surely be unplayable because of the amount of maps and be 100 gigabytes, and they would still keep adding content. Reminder, this is the same company who made several horrible updates to the game, one of which was so bad that one of the issues I mentioned is because of it, and this is the same company who left the game unplayable for over 5 years. We have very little control over Valve no matter how much we point out these issues. TF2 is pennies compared to Counter-Strike, Dota, and Steam as a whole. So, what can we do? Well, in all honesty, I don't think there is much we can do. Only time will tell when TF2 reaches its limit. At 300 maps, will the entire game finally collapse? No game is meant to last this long, let alone keep receiving content, but yet Valve accidentally made the most fun and well-designed multiplayer game ever made, so we are still here. I would hope Valve downsizes the amount of content added with each update. Instead of 5 maps, maybe only 1 or 2 maps. Instead of 27 cosmetics, maybe only 5. Instead of 15 unusual effects, maybe 0. I don't think anyone actually cares for those. Though, I doubt Valve would ever do this. More cosmetics and content means more money for them, so I don't expect anything to change anytime soon. At this point, I think more stuff needs to be removed than added, but Valve removing anything is even more unlikely than them stopping seasonal updates. I would say to keep pushing for better content to be added, but that just adds to the infighting drama as well. Though, please, keep criticizing content in hopes better content being added. This is an unsatisfying conclusion, but the truth is nobody knows when how much is enough. The point of this video is to say how something needs to be done before things become even worse. TF2 will live to see its 20th birthday, but will it survive to see its 30th? Will I be on my deathbed waiting 10 minutes to find a match because there are now 400 maps in rotation? I don't think TF2 will ever truly die, but with the way things are going, I imagine the game will be a lot worse off in the future. Maybe I'm just a TF2 doomer, and this is all actually fine, but I don't want to see my favorite game become more of a husk of its former self than it already is. I don't want TF2's legacy to be more tarnished than it already is. The functionality of the game breaking from all of these updates is my main concern, but I also don't want TF2 to be remembered for all of this. Every update where there are broken maps, bad cosmetics, and another gigabyte of content added, it builds up over time in regards to its reputation. When there is so much bad content added in, it'll just get to a point where the majority of the content in the game is bad. I feel like people will start to view TF2 as just a mediocre game with how things are going. In a way, these updates feel like an insult to the game that was originally burned onto an orange box disc. There is so much effort and attention to detail from the developers who originally made the game. We often joke about how it took 9 years in development, but the truth is that it was worth the wait. Valve went through so many art style changes during development until they found the one that matched what they were going for, and they made the style that we know today incredibly cohesive. I know TF2's artistic integrity has already fallen off many years ago, but why should we keep adding to the fire? It pains me to see this work of art be slowly degraded year after year. Just as you thought it couldn't get any worse, it does. I'm also worried for the MVM update, not only with the selection of the content, but the functionality of it as well. Depending on how much they add, will the matchmaker break and will no one even be able to find a lobby? Will MVM be the new seasonal content formula, where now we get new MVM maps every season? I actually had a lot of hope after the update on the blog. We never get any communication from Valve, so this was incredibly rare, but now after this year's Scream Fortress, I don't have much hope again. So, it's your move, Valve. Will you continue to keep adding content until the game flatlines, or will you stop it before it's too late? Remind me in 10 years when we have 300 maps and no one can play on 90% of them.